Hi and welcome to STS Knows Best. I am your stake technology specialist, Jared, and I am here to help you get set up and get some of the cool things done for your unit when it comes to Meeting House broadcasting. There's been a lot of changes and a lot of things since 2020. When 2020 first hit, everybody was just trying to figure out how to make it work with webcams and Google Meet or Teams or help us, maybe we're even using Skype. It was a pretty scary period. Eventually, the church landed on using Zoom. If you've been using your own personal Zoom account, you might have noticed that there's a limitation with those free accounts. They would stop at 40 minutes. So if you were in a meeting, 40 minutes in, it would end. So the church has created paid Zoom accounts for every unit that wants it. And it is the recommended platform that we should, at least I would say, should be using. Some people are still using YouTube and some other things, and that's fine if that's how your leadership wants to do it. But in this video, I'm going to show you, and you have to be a stake technology specialist for this to work, but I'm going to show you how to set up the Zoom accounts for everybody and how to integrate that Zoom account into the church's official platform on Gospel Stream so it's easier for everyone in the ward or in your stake to figure out how to access these broadcasts. I'm going to start by showing my screen. I have set up just a very simple basic browser here, and we're going to go to meet.church, if you spell it right, churchofjesuschrist.org. Okay, so now I have signed in, and when you get signed in, it'll show your name and your calling if you have access based on your calling. You do have to be in the official register, the church, the list of callings. You have to be a stake technology specialist or assistant, and it's actually under clerk. So you have to be like a stake clerk technology specialist or ward clerk technology specialist, and then you can get access to these. Now there are two different sides, and I'm going to blur some of this because I don't want everyone to see everyone's data. We're going to start with the local units side of the page. So you're going to click on local units manage, and what it's going to do is it's going to show the email accounts that are used with your the official one for your unit. If you already have an existing Zoom account and you utilize this, you're basically giving over the licensing of that account over to the church, just so you know. But what I recommend you do not use your own personal Zoom account you've used in the past. It's probably a good idea to start a new Zoom account and then use that. So you might need to use a new email address. So I recommend having a tech email or a ward email address that a couple key leaders have access to. That's what many units here have done. That's what we have done. Over here in my stake, all of these units have been assigned a Zoom account. So that includes the stake itself and each ward. So I already have an email address completed for each of these. So the only button I have here now is remove. If I was to click on remove, that would remove that and open up that license. Then I would put in the new email address, and that email address has to be the email address that is used to sign in onto Zoom. That is how it authenticates. So in this example, I don't want to mess anything up, but you can do that. If someone left, maybe they changed their ward technology specialist and no one has access to that old email anymore. That's okay. If that happens, the stake technology specialist has the ability to reallocate it. So instead of removing it, it's a little faster and a little easier to instead just click on the email address that is listed and just change it there. Once you do that, that will push out an invitation email to that email address. And as long as they have a Zoom account where that email address is used as the sign-in, it'll authenticate them with a paid account, which means they are not limited to the 40-minute meetings anymore. That's really important and really key. All right, so once you have that in there and you're set up and you're using an official account, we're going to go over to zoom.us. And at zoom.us, you're going to click on sign in, and I'm going to transition out so you don't see me signing in here. All right, now in here, I have a practice meeting that I set up earlier, but one thing you want to know, now that we've come in, Well, you're going to set some things up first. Let me click on that. I have a picture that I use. That profile picture will be the picture that people see if you turn off your webcam before, if you turn off your webcam and you're in a meeting. So in place of having a video feed, they'll see your profile picture. I just put in a picture of the Salt Lake Temple. You might want to make sure it's something appropriate, but it's better than just having an initial or some letter. I prefer actually putting a picture in there. When you are creating meetings, people are thinking meetings because it's a sacrament meeting, so they're going to want to create a meeting. Do not create meetings. When you create a meeting, what will happen is if people join, you'll see them too. Everyone will see each other. You do not want that. You want this to be the type of meeting where everyone can only see the church meeting itself. That is under webinars. So you need to create a webinar. Here you can see that I have set up webinars. And I have a webinar or a meeting, a webinar technically, for every sacrament meeting set up for the rest of the calendar year. Now, one thing I will caution, there's a note, and you may have seen it yourself if you went to meet.churchofjesuschrist.org. If you try and create one recurring meeting or one recurring webinar for every single Sunday for the rest of the year, that's going to be like 52 occurrences, something will happen. There'll be glitches. Not all of them will show up, and not all of them will work with the other platform we're trying to get them visible on, which is the Gospel Stream app. So what I have found works well is create them 1 quarter at a time. So I'll do January, February, March, and I'll just do those 3 months. And then I'll do April, May, and June. And even then, sometimes I've noticed that not all of those show up. If that's the case and that happens to you, then don't worry. You can just delete that whole series and then try it again. You could even do it month by month, but I have found that in my experience, quarter by quarter is a little less work, and it typically has gotten the job done. So if you don't already have them, you're going to click on Schedule a Webinar. You're going to call it what you want. In this case, I'm not really going to keep this one, so I'm just going to call it Test for Video or Test for Training. You can put in a description, but I won't. You could create a template. I created one earlier to make it a little easier for mine, but I'm not going to use a template in this example because we're starting from scratch. You're going to put when that next meeting is. So today is not Sunday when I'm making this video, but let's pretend it is a Sunday. So we'll say that's a Sunday. And let's say the ward meeting starts at 9 a.m. Okay, that's the example. Now, I've had some people say, well, should I set it to 8:50 a.m. because I wanted to start broadcasting before the meeting starts? No, you don't have to do that. If the meeting is officially supposed to happen from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., you are not bound to that specific time. You can start broadcasting an hour early, or actually any time. You're not restricted to that. But that shows as the published official meeting start time, so you want to use that time. It does not keep you from starting the broadcast early or from going long. If you have a really good meeting and it goes on for an hour and a half instead of an hour, that's fine. It's not going to affect anything. So I still put that it's going to start at 9 a.m. and it'll last 1 hour. Make sure you put it into your time zone. If you do live in Arizona like I do, remember that your time zone is different because you do not observe daylight saving time. And so when the rest of the country leaps forward an hour, you stay. So make sure you use the correct time because the wrong time zone will mess things up for when people try and connect. I would set up a recurring webinar. Typically, it's going to happen weekly. And in this case, I'm just going to make a 1-month one just so you can see the example. And because this one is actually on a Saturday, it's already checked for every Saturday, but yours, of course, would be Sundays. So I'm going to let that go for, that's going to repeat every 1 week. Oof, I'm glad I caught that when I said that. That's how often it repeats. It repeats every week, not for that long. I'm going to have it end, though, in just 1 month. So roughly a month. Okay. And now there's registration is required. Don't do that unless your bishop asks you to. That just makes it harder for people to get in, so I typically do not. Same thing with requiring a passcode. Now, if your presiding authority wants to make sure that people aren't just zooming in for convenience, you can absolutely add a webinar passcode, but unless you really are determined to do that, it's going to add a barrier for entry for most people, and I do not recommend it. So I'm going to leave that passcode requirement off, but you're certainly welcome to if you feel like that is something that you need to do. I like the video to be on when I start for me, who is the host. Panelists is another category of people that can also participate. There aren't going to be any panelists, so it doesn't really matter. I'll just leave it off. If someone wants to join in on the telephone and listen to the audio on their cell phone, fine. I just leave it on both. You don't have to. And then I typically uncheck all these other things. I mean, you can check quality 1080p. That's probably not bad. But you're not going to want to have a Q&A session. You don't want to have people doing a lot of chat or other things. If you really want a list of who attended, you could actually include email addresses and an attendee report if you want. I don't do that. And then by default, attendees can chat with. I highly recommend no one. You do not want it to become a chat session during the meeting. Just let people focus on watching it like they're watching general conference. Leave it with no one. I'm going to hit schedule now. And it takes me back here to look at my broadcast. There's a link. You could share this link out if you want to just have people join this meeting. But notice that I only set this up to recur for about a month. Do you really want to have a new link that you have to send out to everybody in the ward every month or every 3 months? That's a pain in the rear. And I got to the point where I got so tired of people asking me for the link that I knew we had to do something better. And fortunately, the church does have a better system that requires no links. You never have to give out a link again. Isn't that enough of a reason to want to do this? It should be. Let me show you how that's done. So I'm not going to use this link at all. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. I'm going to look and say, yeah, looks great, but I'm not going to do anything with it. Instead, I'm going to go back to the first website we went to earlier. And on that home page, remember there was two halves. There was the local units, and then there was the events. We're going to click on Manage Events. Now, depending on your calling, you might see other wards. I have the stake level, so I can see every ward's broadcast, and I can help them with these things, including the stake itself. By default, you might just see your own. And so here we look, and we can see that I have the ones that I already created, which actually I'm going to go ahead and publish that in case I haven't already. I don't know if I had. Okay, so I'm publishing all of that series. Now down here, here's the new one I just created. Test for training. I'm not going to publish this one because I don't want it to be shown on the Gospel Stream app. But that is how this works. If you do not publish it, so right now, that meeting that was going to be happening tomorrow, I'm glad I checked on this, wasn't going to be showing up because I didn't publish it, so people wouldn't see it to join to it. But now that I've published it, what's going to happen is, instead of having to worry about this link, anybody who goes into the Gospel Stream app on their cell phone, whether it's Android or iOS, they can now just look, if they're signed in, they have to be signed into their account, their LDS account. So if they're signed in on that app, there's a list of all the upcoming broadcasts, and you'll see music and the spoken word, you'll see the general things, but you'll also see anything that applies to you in your ward or your stake based on where your records are. So if I do a stake broadcast, I publish it, and it shows up for everyone in the stake. If I'm going to do a ward broadcast, I publish it through the ward, and it only shows up for people in my ward. So it's very cool how that system works. Once I publish it, I can either publish, if it's a series, I can publish the individual or all occurrences in the series. This series has 4 in there. I only did this 1 month because I was testing how some of the things were weird when I set up this, this part of it. So now I have all of March published for my actual ones that I will use. But for the test one, I'm going to leave that unpublished, so it won't really show up. But if I wanted to, I could publish this one meeting, or I could publish all meetings. In this case, I'm just going to not do either. But if it's a series of webinars for sacrament meetings, I would usually just publish the whole series because it's just going to show them all, and it's fine. I do recommend maybe not going, so if you go down and you have the entire years showing up here, which I do, you may not want to spend the effort to publish too far in advance. One thing that I've seen is a bit of a glitch on the Gospel Stream app. Sometimes the next one that shows up is another meeting that's like 3 or 4 weeks in advance. It doesn't show today's date. It's a glitch. I don't know why. It still works the same because it's part of the same series, but it confuses people. So sometimes it's better to not overly publish too far in advance, which is why I had those not published yet. All right, now that I've got that set up and you've seen that, I'm going to refer you to a document that I've already created. So in the comments below, there's a link to a document that I've made on Google Drive. It's free for anyone to view, and it has 3 pages. The first page is going to show people in your ward how to get the Gospel Stream app on their device so then they can view it. The second page is going to show people how they could join the Gospel Stream website in order to watch the conference. So let's say someone isn't very savvy and they're not using an iPhone or an Android, they're going to be sitting at a desktop or a laptop. Well, you can also join the meetings through that, and again, you don't need a Zoom link. Instead, you just go to the broadcast. Well, the information is in the instructions. You'll see it there. That's page 2. Now, there's also a really cool feature. People have said, well, wait a minute. What if I'm having a homecoming or a farewell, or maybe our unit's doing a funeral and we want people to join it? We're going to need the Zoom link for that, right? No, because again, I don't want to have a million calls asking me for the same Zoom link over and over. So instead, there's instructions on where there's a unique code. There's an event code that is built into that publishing system the church has. You can share that event code with people outside of your unit, and so those people can join your broadcast. It's really pretty smartly done. Same thing if you want to see someone else's. So if your nephew is having a homecoming in a different state and their STS is using the same technology, then they can send you their event code. And then that way you can join their other meeting for that one event. It works really well. Now, if someone's on the online system, they're going to do it all through a link on the browser. If someone uses the Gospel Stream app, it's still going to actually send them to Zoom. So you are still using Zoom. Yes, there is a Zoom link that you could, if you really want to, start sharing with everybody. But again, it's a headache you don't want to put yourself through. I recommend just teaching people how to fish instead of feeding them that fish every Sunday. Let them see how easy it is to go on the Gospel Stream app and click join. It's going to open up Zoom and they're going to be into that Zoom meeting without even having to know what the Zoom code was. It's very easy. So links to that document down below. Help yourself to that and you can share that link with anybody. When it comes time to actually doing the broadcast now, well, you're going to have to make sure that you start the meeting correctly. And I'm going to bring up Zoom. And if you're on the same day of the broadcast, when you open up Zoom, you'll see it right here. Now, this is a test one that I'd set up earlier too, so that's still there. But let's say it is on a Sunday. There is the actual meeting. So if you want to start the meeting the day of, when you're in that default app view, you're going to click on the meeting you want, and then you're going to click on Start. Now, this meeting is not supposed to start until 9 a.m. from the time of recording this the next day. But I could actually start the meeting now if I really want to. Because like I said, the date and time you put in is so people know when the meeting is meant to start. It doesn't restrict when you actually would start the meeting. Now, I don't have OBS open right now, so I'm getting this weird, default screen, and none of the sound would work. So I'm not actually going to start this meeting, but that's how that would work. I have other videos if you want to know how to set up OBS. I highly recommend using OBS instead of the default settings in Zoom. I also have another video that's going to show you how to change those settings in Zoom so it makes sense to tie in with this software manager called OBS. OBS is absolutely the best way to manage the broadcast on a simple laptop that can give you a real studio quality broadcast with a very simple laptop and free software tools. This has been another episode of STS Knows Best. I am your Stake Technology Specialist, Jared, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.